Welcome back to Beck Tries. It's Ben again, and today we're going to be doing Russian honey cake, or, and forgive my pronunciation, Medovik cake. You will need flour, bicarb soda, thickened cream, 3 eggs, powdered sugar, unsalted butter, honey, vanilla essence, and sour cream. All amounts will be in the description. First, you will take your honey, and we are going to caramelize our honey. Very hard, put it over the stovetop. Wait till it starts bubbling. It'll change from gold to a nice caramelized brown. Set aside the honey to cool, and then you'll, over a double boiler, put in your butter, your sugar, and half of your caramelized honey. Wait until it melts, and then stir to combine. While you're waiting for the butter to melt, in a jug, combine your 3 eggs and a cupful of vanilla essence and mix to combine. This will be going into the butter once it's melted. Now we're on to our dries. Combine your flour and bicarb and then pour it half at a time into your wet mixture. Once the first batch of flour is combined, it should still be fairly liquid, but once you add the second one, it'll turn into a nice dough. Be careful though, if you don't put enough flour in, it'll be sticky and still a little bit too wet. You need it to be firm because you're going to be rolling it out. Next, weigh your dough and divide it by 8, as you're going to need 8 biscuit layers. Once you've done this, each one of mine came out to about 147 grams. I did have more mixture than the recipe actually says, because the first time I did this I had way too little. But 147 grams each gave me far more than I needed. It's up to you to base this on how big you want your cake to be. Once they're weighed, roll them into bowls and put them under some cling wrap to keep them moist, because otherwise they will dry out before you can roll them. Next, we need to roll them out into circles. Because they can be a little bit sticky, flour everything. You want them to eventually come out to about 18 centimeter circles, because we're going to be using an 18 centimeter ring mold to cut them. Don't worry about it if they're not perfect, because you will eventually be cutting them down to 15 or 14. I only had a 14 centimeter ring mold for my middle one. The recipe did ask for 15 though. But don't forget to keep your scraps, they will be important later. Once rolled out, transfer to a silpat mat and it goes into the oven at 180 degrees for 6 minutes. Once your first 7 layers are in the oven and baked, and off cooling, your last layer will be a bit special. I found this hexagon mold, and you very lightly press it into the top to give it a honeycomb lattice on top of the last biscuit layer. This will be visible outside the cream, so make sure it looks pretty and precise. Now that you've got all your biscuit layers, grab your 14 or 15 centimeter ring mold and punch out the biscuits into nice uniform shapes so they can be stacked for assembly later. But yet again, keep your scraps. We will need them for the outer coating after everything's assembled. Once you've punched out your last layer, you're going to take a knife and very gently cut out one of the middle hexagons. Once this is all assembled, this is going to be a nice little window that we're going to pour honey into, so make sure it's a nice neat cut. Next up, we are taking the cream and whipping it to just before soft peaks. You don't want it over whipped because it'll be a bit too stiff once we've whipped it into the other ingredients, but at least get it to just before soft. Then, in another bowl, whip up your sour cream, your powdered sugar, the rest of your caramelized honey. Once this is combined, add in your just before soft peaks cream, and then combine that until it's just before hard peaks. The caramelized honey flavour in this is really accentuated in the cream. It's a bit more subtle in the biscuits. We're now on to assembly. I put a layer of cream underneath my biscuit layer on my cake turnstile. It's not really strong enough for that, so the cake kept slipping anyway. Once you put down your first biscuit, apply a thick layer of the cream on top of the biscuit, then another layer of biscuit, another layer of cream until you're up to the top layer, and then make sure you keep your top patterned layer nice and clean. Don't worry about cleaning up the sides, it's going to help with the icing later. On the outside of your cake, you're going to try and do a nice coating layer as smoothly as possible. Doesn't matter if it bulges a little bit at the bottom, once you covered it with the biscuits it's not very noticeable and it kind of fits the theme. Then you're going to take all your scraps from the rest of the biscuits and pulverize them in a food processor. The original video had them really fine. I actually liked mine a bit more chunky, it looked a little bit more organic. Now to start applying the biscuit crumb around the outside of your cream, gently pushing it on. You don't need to push it in too hard, it will stick pretty easily. You'll end up with quite a mound around the bottom. Don't worry about that, it can be cleaned off later. More importantly, try to keep the crumbs off the top of your cake. Once your crumb coat is done, grab the honey and add a dollop of honey into the hole you made in your top layer. This should just be for aesthetics. Hopefully if you've kept some spare hexagons you can also place them on just to pretty up the top of the cake. And there you go, a finished Russian honey cake. Once it's set overnight in the fridge, the cream should have softened all the other biscuit layers, so it shouldn't smush as you cut. It ends up being a really nice punchy flavour. The sour cream adds a nice sourness to your honey, and it really just accentuates all the flavours. It is very honey forward though, so if you don't like that, this might be quite a skip. But I loved it. This is my third time trying it, and it's probably the best effort I've had. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.